Welcome to the Nova Wealth Show. I am your host, Amy Novakovich.
And I'm Jim Novakovich. We're a husband and wife team and co-founders of Nova Wealth Management.
We also teach you how to build wealth, advise you how to keep it, and how not to get taken advantage of. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to the Nova Wealth Show. This is the show where we transform your relationship with your money by giving you the information you need to grow and protect your wealth. I'm Amy Novakovich. I'm a certified financial planner and chartered retirement planning counselor and CEO of Nova Wealth Management. You might also be seeing this on our live show, Finance Friday, on Facebook. If you have not seen our shows before, definitely go back through. You can go on our Facebook page and rewatch them. We post them to our YouTube channel, Nova Wealth Management, and we also do occasional lives on Instagram, and I do little 1-minute videos on there, so check that out too. For those of you that have listened to podcasts before, I don't know if you're like me, but I have a really hard time getting through one, or I space out and then I come back and then I'm just like, I'll finish this later. But my guest today, I promise you with his podcast, you would never do that. Not only do I not have to check out and come back, I will rewind, like when I hear something, to hear it twice. This is amazing to have you on. Ken Courtright, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So Ken hosts the Today's Growing in Business Today podcast. And he also is the owner of the Income Store. But you've done so much more than that in your life, haven't you, Ken?
Well, I got to start by saying it's my wife and I.
Oh, nice.
In March of 1992, Carrie and I started knocking on doors, telling business owners we think we can grow their company. And it's been 29 years, I believe, 27 years.
Yeah.
And we're still at it.
Wow. So you work with your wife as well. See, so I work with my husband too. And we can talk about that too, but that's a whole nother topic, is working with your spouse.
Oh, it definitely is. Yeah.
My goodness. And how long have you been married?
Well, we've known each other 30 years. We've been married 25 exactly.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So you started knocking on doors in 1992, but that wasn't your business then. Like, didn't you had a movie?
We believe it or not, the initial business was a marketing company, and we would lead with an electric sign, a window sign, or a banner for a store, for anything that could bring more traffic into an existing retail establishment. And we had data from the Small Business Administration it was undeniable that if you could adjust somebody's storefront and get the letter height bigger, the sign brighter, and reach more people driving by, effectively more people would have to pay attention. And very quickly we grew. We had actually 3,000 clients in 7 years, including a few hundred in Alaska. But at the same time,
wow,
a couple of years into it, we wanted to grow the sign company, in essence, the marketing company, and grow the office. So the place we found to rent this facility happened to be an ex-shutdown video store. And so I said, all right, let's take over this place. I moved all the videos to the side, VHS tapes back then.
Yeah, of course.
And we got the sign company going, got the marketing company going, got the consulting company going.
All in this building?
All in the same building. And then all of a sudden, I kept tripping over these VHS tapes, and I said, wait a minute.
What are we doing?
If we're so good at growing businesses, can't I reopen this video store and make it go? So I called the manager. His name was Mark Oberts. And I said, Mark, how much did this store used to do on a Saturday? And he gave me a number. And I'm like, God, how did he make any money? And he's like, he didn't. He broke even.
Right.
I said, if I open this thing back up and I completely change everything, storefront, signage, parking lot, the whole thing, would you come back and run this place? So to keep this short, within 6 weeks, we had grown the business 600%.
And you knew nothing about running a video store.
I didn't know anything about video stores, but I knew how to get walk-in traffic into a store.
There you go.
And so we blew out the parking lot, meaning there was no place to park. So we moved a mile west into a 5 times larger facility for both the video stores and the sign business. And we tripled it in that spot. And then we just started opening stores everywhere. So
how did you, and this is probably for every type of business, obviously, because you knew nothing specifically about videos, but without the internet, really, did you just go door to door, or was it really just your signage? Like what your business?
In the 90s, pre-internet, if you had a retail location, think about a flower shop or anything, a printing place, you would do a number of things. You would, of course, have the biggest, best sign you could.
Yeah.
But you would do radio, you would do newspapers, you would do flyers, you would do TV commercials. I've done them all for the video stores. So it's called guerrilla marketing. You do whatever you have to make sure your zone of influence around that video store knows you exist. Most people still today don't even know what a zone of influence is. They just think, I have a good product, word of mouth will get out, and that's the kiss of death.
And it would still be effective today. So and I've seen you and Carrie both speak, obviously at your conference, the Digital Footprint, but at other conferences as well. And you talk about the pizza box, the partnering with the pizza. Can you talk about that? And you did it on your podcast too.
I got the Willie story about that. Yeah, that's Louis Pizza. So we had a situation where every summer the video stores would drop because dads would want to play catch with their kids in the backyard. They're not going to rent a VHS tape in the summer. Right. It doesn't happen. So
not in a seasonal area. Like
exactly.
See, I'm in Florida, but and I know you're in a
exactly. But in the Midwest, summers were terrible. So I got 2 years in a row of getting my butt kicked financially in the summer. I said, you know what? I'm not letting this happen again. So in April, I just started thinking, okay, who could I partner up with that has an exact match audience of mine where I could maybe market to their audience that might not know I exist. They could market to mine. And so what we ended up doing, I talked to this older gentleman. He was all gray. I walked in and I said, hey, my name's Ken. I'm from the video store, literally 4 doors down.
Yeah.
I said, I had 10,000 coupons printed. I said, I want you to put these on your next 10,000 pizza boxes.
Yeah.
And he looked at me completely sideways. And I said, he actually asked his manager to kick me out. And I said, whoa. I said, if you put these, I'm sorry, I had the numbers wrong. If you put these 5,000 coupons on your pizzas, I'll let you print 10,000 coupons and I'll put all of those out in a week in my video stores. And that really got his attention. And
because everybody, you do pizza and a movie. Like they just go hand in hand.
Perfect.
Yes.
So we did that. We did the coupon swap and he grew 8%. And it held for him, and I grew 22% and didn't feel a summer drop. So that really opened my mind to partner marketing, where maybe a dentist, they have the exact same customer as the local doctor, right? A mortgage guy has the same customers as an insurance guy. So why don't they cross market their audiences? And so I've spent 25 years on stages explaining this model of cross marketing.
Yeah, and I mean, oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. Like on your podcast, guys, it's so good. I have so many things in my head, like, oh, you talked about this one, you talked about this one, and I only have so many minutes with you. But you mentioned too, like kind of doing something like this, like you start a podcast and you interview others and you have 2 people now marketing yourself. Or Correct. You mentioned like, getting mentioned on somebody's blog, or you say, I'm going to do an article about you. And then they, you're linked to them, or, can you talk about that too?
Sure. I'm going to spin it different because my podcast, which is called Today's Growth in iTunes, is different because as we talked about before we went live, I have ADD, OCD to the highest level.
Yes.
I'm never going to stop and write books yet. I committed a couple of years ago to podcasting 3 times a week, at least 10 minutes a piece on something inside our company or inside of our client's business that caused growth. Yeah. And so I journal all the time and I podcast, but I don't interview anybody else. The podcast is actually for my children so that they have something to learn from when they run this company. Yeah. But here's what happened that was interesting. I've been podcasting now for years, 3 times a week, and a division of Wiley read the transcriptions of my last 400 podcasts. And there is the equivalent of 44 200-page books on growth tips without repeating myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so crazy because a lot of times, let's face it, like even people I've interviewed before, they go towards the motivation, like do more or, be a better version of yourself, which is great. And a lot of people, including me, get fed by that. But in my mind, there's only so much. Like in your podcast, you give away so much specific content with things that you can go out and do right now. Not just like, now I'm going to go out and get it. Like literally you'll have pages of notes of what you can go to the computer and do right away. It's just insane. Like I said, again, before we went live, I was like, I don't even know how you keep coming up with this content.
Yeah. Well, let me give you one that just resurfaced this week that I'm about to podcast on next.
Okay.
So there is a free tool that is probably the greatest unpromoted tool in history. It's called the Google AdWords Keyword Planner.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this tool,
Yeah, I listened to this episode too.
it's so powerful. I had a previous podcast years ago called How to Read Your Client's Mind. But I need to walk everybody listening to this through this, because everybody hearing this can impact this tomorrow in their business and grow their business like almost overnight for free. So I was in a mastermind group, circle of people around, and we were going around the horn trying to dissect everybody's current business challenge. And if my company, Income Store, with 200 employees, were able to work on that business, they wanted to know, what would we do? What would we recommend?
Okay.
And so we went around the circle, and I could tell that there was this one guy named Tim. He was very antsy to speak, to the point where he almost was raising his hand to go next. I finally asked the group around, I said, does anybody mind if Tim goes next? If you could just tell,
he clearly has something to say.
He was itching. And I said, hey, Tim, would you like to go next? He's like, I got to go next. I have a plane to catch, but I'm not leaving till I talk to you. And he goes, I have a challenge that I think you might be one of the few people that might have experience here. And I just need to put this in front of you. I said, go ahead. What do you got? He goes, I run a business that builds high-end bicycle parts. Our company was just featured on a show called How It's Made on the Biography Channel or History Channel.
Okay.
It's a great show. And I
Love
said, so it sounds like you're doing great. What's your challenge? He says, we have no idea what product to come up with next. And I said, oh, okay, I got this. Give me a second. I lifted my laptop. I opened up this free tool from Google. And I said, Tim, tell me and everybody around here, what is your number one product you're currently selling? And he said, oh, bike helmets. So I typed in bike helmets to the Google AdWords Keyword Planner.
Okay.
And I hit enter. And all of a sudden, this tool spit out 800 different phrases. And this is what happens. The first phrase was bike helmets. And it told us that 11,200 people in the last 30 days typed in bike helmets.
Has searched bike helmets.
Searched bike helmets in some fashion. And without even telling Tim what this tool does, I turned my laptop to him and I said, look at the top few results. Does any of this information speak to you? And the one that came up right underneath bike helmets was bike pumps. And it wasn't 11,000, it was like 33,000. And he said, I need a bucket, I need to vomit. And I said, why? And he was turning white as a ghost. And I said, what's going on? He goes, you're not gonna believe this. For 6 years, people have been walking into our company trying to get us to represent 3 different types of bike pumps that have a 50% net profit, but we kept rolling our eyes thinking people just go to Walmart for a bike pump.
Pumps.
who would buy a bike pump from us? And I said, well, needless to say, Tim, what is the next product you're adding to your product line? He said, well, of course, bike pumps. And he goes, and he grabs my computer, he goes, but let me see that. And of the top 20 results, which are what Google shows and proves is the same people that typed in for bike helmets, the same people are typing bike pumps, bike parts, inner tubes, mainframes, new pedals.
So that's your client. So that is exactly what your client is buying.
It's exactly what the client wants to see on your website, and it's stinking free. So he told the whole group that he actually was expecting some type of result like this because I'm the web guy. And lo and behold, he did follow up with me years later, and they added all those products, and they're killing it.
I bet. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is just one of your 400 tips that you have. And you'll have like 10 tips a podcast, but this is just insane because like I had never heard until I listened to that episode, but I had never heard of the Google AdWords Keyword Planner, and you wouldn't even know to like look it up type thing because so many people are so busy having other people manage their web traffic and manage their SEO and all this stuff, which you have a ton of tips on that too. But I mean, these are things that you literally, like you said, like as a business owner, I can go to my computer and do this right now. I don't need to go hire somebody.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like it's actual concrete information that you can go do right now, which is so super cool. And so, I want to get to what Income Store actually does too, because obviously I'm in investments and the Income Store is passive income. But one last question on your podcast. So when you give business owners tips, like, do you think about, Are you targeting a specific type of business? Like this is a retail business with a product, or this is the service industry like me, like a professional service or a CPA or an attorney? Or
Sure.
do you truly feel like your tips cover all businesses?
I actually don't view it that way. What I do is I live life. I journal along the way. I journal about 10 times a day of what I'm covering, and I do it for certain backtracking purposes to see if every year we're working on the same stuff.
Okay.
But what I end up doing is when it comes time on Saturday where I'm going to cut 3 podcasts, I open up the journal. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and I can literally spot, okay, we grew this website with this technique. We grew this company with this formula or this advice. And I go, oh, the podcast listeners have not heard this from me before. And then what I do is I do what you just said, and I have to say, okay, how can I formulate this for a one-person, one-man shop service business, all the way up to 1,000-person product-based company? How can I formulate what we taught over here to this one company into something that would make sense for everybody? So I do some thinking, but most of it is just pure bullet point, knee-jerk, me puking into the microphone with really no set agenda or script.
Just really journal. When you say journaling, you mean you're just kind of writing down what you're doing throughout the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you an example. So I'm holding this up for you. So this is showing me what went out through my day so far. And what people have called me with questions. I had to comment to our search engine marketing manager on this. I had to give a piece of advice to the person doing our Facebook ads. Well, okay, if I knew right now, when that guy I gave the Facebook tip to calls me back next week with the results, I can podcast on that because my podcast has no theory. I only podcast after proven growth.
Aha. See, now that is good right there. And so speaking of proven growth, so your company, The Income Store, which I saw for the 6th year now, you're a Fortune 5,000?
Inc. 5,000. Yeah. So we just found out last week that we are growing faster than all 18 million US companies again for the 6th time.
That's incredible. And we obviously know that you have some tips for growing a business, but tell me specifically and tell the listeners, because actually I know, but what the Income Store does and how it can help generate passive income for people.
Yeah. So years ago, as you kind of touched on in the early days, we had a video store chain. And that video store chain, to say that it collapsed would be an understatement. We went through a very suffocating phase when Blockbuster, Family, and Hollywood Video moved next door to every store, all in a 7-month period of time. So there is no video stores exist today. So with that, I vowed I would never have one source of income again. And I went in search of how could I get multiple revenue streams into our company. Today we have 1,100 revenue streams coming in. And knowing how my family's raised, we're basically a privately held debt-free company. I'm a somewhat privately held debt-free family. My family in 135 years has never had a divorce one time. And there's never been a person with our last name have a W-2 job. So
wait,
we're business owners. I know, it's insane.
Your family in 135 years has never had a divorce?
Not with the last name Courtright, no. It's insane.
How?
So, well, we believe that we believe most divorces start over financial challenges.
Well, that's true.
And yeah, that is proven.
The top two reason, yeah.
There's a lot of things. And when you're in business with your spouse, you're sharing a dream. The SBA statistics say if a business makes at least $1, divorce in those homes is half of normal, meaning it's about only 25%. So I'm very protective that I teach my children to live debt-free, privately held, stay lean. We lived in a one bathroom home for 17 years when all of my friends were building big homes. We just delayed gratification, bought used cars, and now we live in a insane 3-story home on a private ski lake with other condos and other things. So, but it was delay, and then slim shit. So it's a belief we have as a family, and we run the business the same way. Our 22,000 square foot office campus is paid for, in the business. We wrote a check for it.
That's an interesting concept that you have, because when I do financial planning, leverage, and I know we're off on a tangent right now because I asked you what the Income Store does, but I promise we'll get back to it, even though, I know we're both ADD here. But when I'm doing planning, a lot of times leverage makes sense to grow wealth, especially over time. Like a lot of times, if you have a 4% fixed mortgage, it doesn't make sense to throw an extra $1,000 towards your mortgage, especially if you're going to live in the house for a very long time. It makes more sense to throw that extra $1,000 into an investment account and let it grow using leverage.
For sure.
But you're talking about being debt free. So did you ever look at leverage, or do you use that now that you actually have funds? Or
very ironically, the timing, and I mean even in the last 60 days, we are really looking at leveraging assets. We have intangible assets, a lot of them. We have building assets, because you can only grow so far so fast on cash.
Yeah, so, on your own money.
Yeah. Very close to your current situation, dealing with a family at a 4% mortgage, that would make no sense to pay that down. Right. So there are certain things that we can escalate with large amounts of cash that could build out larger teams to just make way more money. And ironically, we are really conservatively looking at that method.
Okay. But in a way, like, I know it's not leverage as in debt, but you do use other companies to produce income, which in a way, you know, and so I'm kind of circling back to what the income store does. Sure. But so my whole reasoning for a lot of times using leverage, especially for like middle income families, is because you're using somebody else's money to make your money on 100%. Top of your own money making you money. So you have two sources of income essentially, and which is what you've done, but in a different way.
Well, you know what I mean? That's a perfect bridge to income store.
Yes.
You can say that we leverage other people's money in a way that helps income store. So I'll give you an exact example of what income store has done for 10 years. People come to us, and I'll just give you a make-up example. Hey, Ken, I just sold a piece of rental property. I have $100,000. What can I do?
Right.
Well, I say, hey, you could talk to your financial advisor, but if you want to work with what we do, I'm going to take your money, and I'm either going to go buy a website that's for sale for, say, $100,000, or I might build something that's going to cost me $100,000 the first year to build. But the bottom line is I'm going to build you an asset where you will own the deed of the property. I will have no equity in that asset. It's yours. You own it. It sits in your house. But I will have a contract, and I will manage that for you in perpetuity, meaning until you sell it.
Right.
For as long as you hold that, I will manage it for 50% of the revenue. And then I will even do a minimum monthly guarantee of X amount so that it's comfortable for them to deal in a territory typically unknown, which is websites making money.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have thousands of them now. Now we're fairly well known. Carrie and I speak all over the world and write books and do this and that. But in the early days, man, to talk somebody into throwing you a couple bucks to do a website that makes money, it was like, what language are you speaking? You know?
Yeah. Did it take a few years to kind of get?
Oh, it was really slow. 2009, I think we had 13 customers. I think 30 the next year. And then it exploded, you know. And then I put out a little book in 2012 called Online Income, Navigating the Internet Minefield. And it was the story of our first 200 sites, many of which just tanked. I mean, we had no idea what we were doing, but we had in the contract.
You learned through process elimination.
In the contract, it's written, it's called an act of God clause. If something happens to your site, act of God, competitor, a Google algorithm, or our company does something stupid, if it breaks, we have to buy you another one. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's really what put us on the map, was our quote unquote guarantee.
Your guarantee. Yeah.
You know, that's what makes it comfortable for people. And, you know, now we're all over the place right now.
That's amazing. So do you also build it so that it can be sold for more money later, or you're really focused on the income?
No. Of course. Yeah. I had my famous story is we had a gal, I don't want to say the exact amount she gave us, but it was 6 figures plus. And 15 months later, the phone rings. This woman is in Costa Rica. She is very much having a problem. It's even hard to speak. And what happened was her family got caught up in what was called the Panama Papers. Okay. And the bank was shut down. Believe it or not, even Putin had money in that bank from Russia. And so all of their money was gone. They didn't even have money to pay their rent, let alone their homes, their multiple homes, their cars. They needed food money. So she said, I need you to sell this in 72 hours. And I said, I don't think you understand. I don't sell websites. I build them. And she's
Right.
like, I don't care. I know you know
I need
people.
you to sell
Well,
it.
turns out in 72 hours, we found a buyer for 2.5 times more than she gave us. So she got her money back plus half of the growth, because we get half of the growth also.
Right.
And needless to say, she's pretty happy. And that asset is still kicking butt today.
That's amazing. So see, this is definitely a classic, what I would call in my world, diversification, because we're constantly trying to find different types of investments for clients. Cause I don't want everybody to have money in the stock market. Like unless there's a big difference between an investment advisor and a financial advisor. And when we're giving like holistic financial advice, I look for other things like this, to kind of give people things that don't move together, because everything could come crashing and burning at one time.
100%. Yeah,
and you
100%.
want to have other sources of income. So the income store is definitely a way to do that. So how can people get a hold of you, Ken?
So there's a couple ways, and a lot of it is because of our new communication director, but we have our fundamentalincomestore.com. Everything about us is in there, 10 years of history. We just launched, we're recording episode 4, but episode 1 and 2 of incomestore.tv is live. These are, I think they're 40-minute TV episodes where we interview site partners, we interview our team, you walk through our big building in Pennsylvania. They're very informative, and then they're funny as heck. Then we have our social platforms, Facebook and Twitter, at Income Store. Our Instagram is Instagram at incomestore.tv. That's basically it. But incomestore.com, we have 2 doors, 0 to 100K and 100K to $1 million. Most people go to the 0 to 100K door. There's 400 plus from the podcast, the videos my wife and I cut that cost nothing. And then the 100K to $1 million is our fundamental website stuff for the people that have more money than time. It's a great diversification, and there's a ton of videos that people should watch before they call us. But it's kind of cool. It's fun.
That is a ton of fun. Any last words that you want to leave? Because we have listeners of 2 different groups, really. We have the business owner group, entrepreneurs, one-man bands, everything from that to, like you said, 1,000-person companies. But then we also have retirees. So do you have any, last tips so we can wrap this up? If you can believe it or not, it's already been 20.
I do. I would tell the retiree that has, I'm going to say, more money than time, that they should play in our 0 to 100K door, because at least for the next 2 months, there is not actually anything outside of an $8 book that can be bought. It's just hundreds of 7-minute podcasts, 30-minute videos, 7-minute videos.
Yeah.
Maybe these retirees are passionate about landscaping, and there's tools in there that can help them launch a website for free with interns from college. They don't have to pay anything, and they can make some couple $100 a month. There's just so much cool stuff in that door number 1.
Yeah.
I would play in that door. Definitely follow us on incomestore.tv. That's turning out to be very cool.
Very awesome.
Yeah, I would just say, just hit us online. And
I have to tune into that too now, because I haven't seen that yet.
It's really neat.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Like, all your information, I really appreciate it so much. I mean, me and so many other people appreciate your podcast, but I appreciate you being here, letting me pick your brain. But definitely, I want to have you back maybe like next year.
For sure. Anytime.
More good stuff to say.
That's great. Well, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Thanks so much.
All right. Behave.
Thank you.